Scary EIRE. EIRE is the Irish or Gaelic word for Ireland. Paranormal means all the things that are impossible to explain by known natural forces or by science. And Ireland is steeped in lore, ghosts, blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, hunger, desperation, and charm. Oh, and the paranormal. Welcome to Scary EIRE.
Mark Manning.
Mark won't be with us in this special episode of Scary EIRE. Apart from in spirit, of course.
Get out!
As Mark wants to honour women and the paranormal with this conceptual, as he calls it, he insisted that only female voices should be featured. If you listen, you'll be enlightened and hopefully intrigued by the paranormal experiences of women. From the wilds of Ireland's County Mayo to eerie happenings in Clapham's flatlands, over to the faded glory of Wexford's Loftus Hall and across Offaly's Charleville Castle. Even Gwen Johnson, widow of sadly missed British medium and TV personality Derek Acorah, has a tale to tell, and more. Women may be more perceptive of the paranormal and supernatural due to a combination of biological, psychological, and cultural factors. Studies suggest that women often have a higher emotional intelligence and intuition, allowing them to notice subtle cues others might miss. Historically, women have been linked to mystical roles such as healers, witches, or mediums, strengthening their openness to the unseen. Social conditioning also encourages women to express emotions and trust their instincts, making them more receptive to paranormal experiences or energies beyond the physical realm. I'm Sarah Campbell, radio broadcaster, event host, and voice actor. Between the world we see and the things we fear, there are doors. When they are opened, nightmares become reality. Tara Moore, author, originally from County Kildare, Ireland, now resident in England for many years.
I thought, though, that since I've been living in England for so many years now, I'd concentrate on a few stories of my time there and leave the Irish side of things for another day. It was sometime in 1985 and my husband and I moved into a flat in Clapham North in London. It was an old house like many of them there, an old Victorian. It was divided into 3 flats. We were at the top. 2 friends of ours, Ali and Elaine, lived on the first floor. And there was an ancient looking woman from Haiti living in the basement. And naturally, it was rumoured that she was into the odd bit of voodoo. Now, I don't know if she was or not, but what I can say is that the smells that came out of that flat were like nothing I've smelt before or since. Stomach churning, to say the least. For all I know, it could have been an eye of newt or toe of frog, but anyway, I'll just leave that with you. I suppose the first peculiar thing that happened is that every now and then a nebulous white shape would appear at the top of the landing as I came up the stairs. And that used to sort of bring me up short. It was a cold old house anyway, but it always seemed to get colder. And I got the sense that this thing, whatever it was evil. The sense was that it didn't want me there. And to tell you the truth, I didn't want to be there. But it was hard to get a flat at a decent rent at that time. And so there was no option but to stay put. Anyway, I coped with that by saying a little prayer our mother taught us as kids. There's nothing to fear because Jesus is here. His love is delight which makes all things come right. I used to say it aloud and it must have worked because the thing would disappear. Sometimes I might catch a glimpse of it in the mirror behind me and I'd say the prayer again. In that way I suppose I just got used to it. But after a while, things kind of hotted up. We were woken up one night by the sound of screaming coming from our friend's flat below. We went rushing down. I don't think we thought that bit through properly. And just as we reached their door, it flew open and Ali raced out. Now, Ali was a big man, 6 foot plus, and didn't scare easily. But his eyes were like saucers and he was babbling incoherently. He pointed back into the flat and we ran into the bedroom, guided by Elaine's screams. We found her sitting up in the bed, as white as a ghost herself, staring at a spot on the mattress, where there was a deep depression as if somebody was sitting beside her. The room was like an icebox. We couldn't take our eyes away from the spot, but as we stared, the depression faded away as if someone had got up. Well, they moved out the very next day, but before they went, they told us that Elaine had gone to bed first and was dozing off when she felt Ali come in and sit down beside her. Then a sixth sense alerted her to the fact that it wasn't Ali, and the rest, as they say, is history. We stayed on, mainly because we'd nowhere else to go and we wouldn't have got our deposit back from the landlord, and we couldn't afford that. Anyway, winter came and my brother-in-law came to stay for a few days. The weather was absolutely awful that year. It was freezing and there was a heavy fall of snow. We'd only one bedroom, so he had to sleep on the couch. Rinse and repeat, as they say, we were woken in the middle of the night again by loud screaming. We found the brother-in-law chucking on his clothes at the speed of light. He said he woke up feeling a heavy weight on his chest and the feel of fingers around his throat strangling him. Now, truth to tell, he did like a drink or two, but there was no denying the red finger marks on his neck. Nothing would persuade him to stay over till morning. Instead, he chose to go out and walk in the freezing streets till dawn. To be honest, we'd had enough ourselves at that stage, and deposit or no deposit, we moved out shortly after.
Kiva Garvey of Paranormal Adventures Ireland.
There's only ever been once that I've ever been caught off guard in the paranormal field. And that's in Wicklow Jail. It was around Halloween and we were holding a public investigation. And we were down in the basement. I don't know why, but for some strange reason, I got this weird, overwhelming feeling that I needed to go every floor of stairs up to the top by myself, of course. And I rushed my way up and I'm standing there and I'm looking out. And if you know that Wicklow Jail, it's basically railings the whole way around, and then you can see the drop down, you can see across the jail. And I'm looking out and it's dark. I don't even have my torch on. And looking across, and it's not too pitch black because the moon is shining in the windows. And I see this shadow figure across the way, the entire way across the jail from me. And what was different about this shadow figure was that it had what I can only describe as wings. And I'm just there and I'm staring at it, and I see it grab on to the railings on front of it and pull one leg over the railing and dive down into the ground, down the jail, and disappear. And I was honestly, I was terrified. I was so terrified. I've never been so scared in my life. I booked it out of there. I ran so fast, but I went down the wrong way. So in Wicklow Jail, from where I was standing, there's 2 sets of stairs. One to the left, one to the right. To the left is the set of stairs that isn't usually used, so it's chained off on every level. And I went to the left, trying to get away as quickly as possible because my brain wasn't thinking. And I'm running down these stairs and I'm literally trying to hop across chains and almost falling over. And I get down to the bottom where we had set up for tea and coffee and everything. And I turn around to the rest of the team and I'm like, I don't think you guys will believe what I just saw. They ask, what? Obviously. And I explained to them what I had seen. And all of them are very confused. And they remember this night so clearly because I was so confused. I'm also freaking out. I'm like, what the fuck did I just see? Like, what did I see? There was not much, there was nothing that I had in my brain to explain it. So we finish up our investigation with the public and we're on our way out and everything's fine. And my heart is still beating in my chest. I'm still feeling nervous. I don't know what's going on. I'm very shaken up. So I get on my phone as soon as I get into the car and I'm Googling, shadow figure with wings, angel shadow figure, because that's all I could think of. Because of the wings, I thought it was an angel. I just didn't know, but I didn't understand why it was a black shadow. And 3 stories come up. And the first story wasn't relevant. It was like a fan fiction. The second story was of this guy who had seen this thing and he didn't know what it was. And he was very confused too. And the third story was from this guy, another guy. And it was on Reddit. And he says that, this is the angel of death. And if you see it, basically, you're supposed to die. And at that moment, I was terrified. Because I was like, oh, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I want. Terrified. I'm shaking. I don't know what to think, what to believe. This is the only story I can find out about this on the internet. And then we end up doing a podcast a few weeks later with this lady who knows all of her angels. So I ask her about it and she says that I've seen Azrael, who's an angel in the Judaism religion, and that he ferries souls to the underworld and to heaven and everywhere, and that it wasn't meaning that I was going to die, it was just that he was there to take some souls. And I was like, oh, fair enough. And it really soothed my nerves. I didn't feel like I was going to die anymore. But then recently, I actually told this story on another podcast. It's 3 for 3. And the night of the eclipse that happened only a few weeks ago. And go outside because it looks so weird. The sky is so orange and purple and green and blue and all of the colours, and we're looking up at the clouds from our front door. And I have photos but in the photos you can see this grey shadow in the orange clouds, and it's like a man with wings, and he's looking around, and then the clouds weren't moving, so I cannot explain this. In the photos, only the grey cloud moves, and it comes the whole way around, and it gets ginormous, and almost rests its hands on top of the orange cloud that's on front of it, and leans in and looks at us. And I've never felt that uneasy since that night. But at the same time, I felt so calm. And I never thought I'd have an update to the angel story, ever. But I feel like I've now had 2 encounters with the same angel. And I don't know what that means. And it's something I'm going to be looking into over the next God, for the rest of my life, in all honesty, because I do feel incredibly lucky to be one of these people who can say, well, I've seen an angel. It's a kind of cool story.
Samantha Kelly, Phoenix Files, EIRE.
Looking back now, my passion for the paranormal started from a very young age. I was heavily influenced by my great-grandfather, who loved all things supernatural and paranormal. He literally babysat me with tales of the banshee and the puka and the little people. And so growing up, I always had a passion to know more. Were they really out there? Could they communicate back? And so ghost stories became my bedtime reading. And I guess into adulthood then, of course, there is no option but to be a paranormal investigator. I began investigating officially in 2010 and I caught my very first EVP. And I have to say, I know other investigators out there will agree, when you catch that first piece of evidence, that irrefutable thing that you know for sure wasn't influenced by anything, it's not a tummy grumble, it's not a flash of light, it's not anything that can be explained. There is a thrilling moment of, oh my God, this is it. When something intelligently answers you and gets to talk back to you. It is an amazing experience. With the advancement of the new technologies and all the different ways we have now to investigate, I see things changing so much. It's amazing to watch that communication can be sped up. We're getting answers now quicker than ever before. And that's so cool to see and to live through in my lifetime. In 2011, I went to Charleville Castle to do one paranormal night. And to say that I fell head over heels in love with the castle, with the people and the team that run it, and its amazing history, well, that's an understatement. The next day I signed on to become a volunteer, and I have been volunteering there ever since. I do a lot of the paranormal stuff at the castle, but I also do daytime tours for the history people, and we do a lot of cleaning and minding and upkeep of the castle, and then handle movies, TV shows, the wedding photos, things like that, anything that comes through. So it's quite a varied catalogue of events that we cover. But I think being there and giving these tours, talking about the history of the family, talking about their legacy, all of these things, I think it creates such a unique experience with the paranormal. I feel like they nearly know us. They know us by name. I've had my name said multiple times in multiple ways, even to visiting investigators from America or Australia. They'll catch my name on a spirit box or EVP or something like that. So it definitely has heavily influenced the activity we experience at the castle. One of my favourite stories is from years ago. It was a March, I'll never forget it. It was quite cold, and we decided we would sweep and mop Harriet's staircase. Now, Harriet is one of our more famous residents. She passed away at the age of 8 when she fell from the principal staircase at the castle. And so we were sweeping the stairs, and we got to the last flight, and I asked my cousin Nadine, would she mind running down and getting the mop bucket and the mop, and we would wash it and I'd sweep that last flight. She said grand, and so she went out, and just for reference, the volunteers' kitchen is down 2 flights of stairs and in the sub-basement over the far side of the castle. So she was quite a distance from me when it happened. So I was sweeping that last flight, and on one of the steps I overshot it, and I just had a little bit of a wobble, and I had to grab the banister, and from above me I heard this little voice say, "Oh, be careful." And once I'd righted myself, I looked up to thank whoever it was, but there was nobody there. And so I turned, looked into the doorway, thinking maybe Nadine had made it back up and I just hadn't heard her. But no, she wasn't there either. Now, I did think at the time it was far too clear, far too loud. There was no way that could have been something else. So I rang Bonnie, who is one of the residents at the castle and leads us volunteers. And I said, "Was that you?" And she said to me, was what, me? And I said, "Are you upstairs?" And she says, "No, I'm downtown getting the shopping." And I said, "What?" And she goes, "I'm downtown getting the shopping. Do you need something?" And I was like, "No." She's, "What's happened? I know by your voice something happened." So I explained to her what had just happened. And she laughed and she said, "Ah, yeah, but we get that all the time." And she said, what did the voice say? And I said, "Told me to be careful." And she said, "That sounds like really good advice to me." And so it stuck with me. This realization that not only are they watching us maybe give tours and clean and love their castle and their home, but they also care and they look out for us and they're watching over us on some level. As I said, I definitely think it has influenced how they communicate. We have all had our names come out on different devices over the years. I think they feel they know us, like we are some part of the extended family, and it does influence the activity that we get at the castle. It fuels in me this absolute passion for not only the paranormal, but for Charleville and its history. I love when we get something on the spirit boxes, on the EVP, on any of the devices, or even if it's someone who has a psychic sense and they come in and they tell me something, or a name, they get a name and a job title or anything at all, something that I can go back and trace with the archives, and to find that thing, to find that interesting tidbit is absolutely amazing. I've had people tell me the name of the first Earl's dog, which is an impossible bit of history to find, but when I did and I realised that they were spot on, that is an amazing, amazing moment. So I suppose I will never give up the paranormal. It will always be something I do, always be something that has an interest for me, that grips me, that keeps me enthralled.
Sarah Campbell.
Emma Taylor, student teacher, Ireland.
One night, my dad and I were exploring the ruins of the Black Hag Abbey in Foynes, County Limerick. It was around midnight at the time. The abbey stood silent for our visit, and we soon decided to leave. Walking back along the path towards the brick wall entrance and onto the road, we both suddenly heard heavy footsteps on the other side of the wall coming towards us, causing both of us, without speaking to each other, to back up out of the way, thinking someone was about to turn into the entrance of the abbey. Nobody did. I walked out onto the road, looking every which way, but a quiet street by a silent abbey was all that was there. So who or what was walking towards us that night?
Rosemary Fahy of Puka Paranormal.
I got into the paranormal because my father used to bring me up to the Hellfire Club in Dublin, and we'd go for walks up there, and he'd tell me the stories of the Banshee and the stories of the devil walking around, going through the roof and playing cards with people and showing himself to his hooves to the people playing cards, very similar to a few other locations in Ireland. But I just had a love from a young age, and hearing all the fairy and folk tales of stories and ghosts around the country. So it got me into doing paranormal from a young age. With my dad, it was a way of spending time with him. He was very busy, and I was an only girl, so it was great to have time with my dad. So I think, trying to think of some of my favourite memories going forward of some of the locations I went to over the years, and I think one has to be Loftus Hall in the Hook. It's a beautiful location, absolutely beautiful, and I'd gone many a time as a young girl with my family. Didn't realise the full extent of it till I was older, and I went on a tour and fell in love with it. I've had a draft on me one day and I was going, God, I need to come back here. So I went back with the team and I did an investigation, and I needed more. I just wanted to know more about it. So then again, I returned to the scene, and I was helping out. I was assisting a team with an investigation for the public, and we were up on the top floor in one of the rooms with the big bay windows. There was a beautiful chaise lounge in the room, but no one sat on it because it was filthy. And we were sitting there, and the girl I was with was explaining a situation that happened to other people when they're up there, that they were looking out on the corridor and could see a man walking down the corridor in and out of the rooms. And as she said that, I suddenly heard a voice laughing, going, that was me. And I remember just going, oh God, oh God. And I look around and I couldn't see anyone else looking at me as if they'd been talking to me. So I just said nothing and stood there. And the girl who was doing the main lead of the team was looking at me going, "Are you okay?" I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. She goes, "No, seriously, are you okay?" I said, yeah, I'm fine. So she continued explaining to the public, it's a group of around 10 people, of what had happened, that this man had been seen walking up and down the corridor, and just keep an eye on the corridor in case you see something. And next thing I heard more laughter going, yeah, that was me. And I was going, oh God, oh no. And she looked back at me and goes, "Are you sure you're okay?" And I was like, yeah, I'm sure, I'm sure. And she looked at me and goes, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, the first time you said, listen, about the guy crossing over the corridor and people had seen him." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I heard a male voice laughing, saying, haha, that was me." And she looked at me and goes, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she could tell by my face that, obviously I definitely heard it. No one else in the room had spoken. And because usually when someone in an investigation speaks, they look at the person to explain themselves. And I was going, oh God, there's nothing, no one's saying it. And I said, and then when he continued, I went back again and said that the man was walking across. I said again, he was laughing, going, haha, that was me. And she looked, "Really?" And I was like, going, yeah, a little bit spooked by it. Terrible pun of words there, but it was really interesting. So we continued on and I heard nothing else. And there's many times I've gone back up to that room and I'm praying for this man to come back and talk to me. And he obviously has decided not to talk to me. But it's a memory I'll always have in Loftus, because that top floor, when you're in the room, that room with the bay windows, it's the top floor of the building. And there's a bit of plastic on the windows because there's not glass in the whole thing. And always it was windy in Loftus because you're on the hook. You're on the corner, you're right on the ocean, and the smallest wind, that plastic ruffles. So you're standing there in total silence, pitch black, and you have the ruffle of silence, and it's just going, oh my God. So the smallest sound is amplified and you'll hear it very clearly. So hearing a man's voice talk to me and laughing and realising it's no one else in the room is a bit going, oh God. But it's also, as a paranormal investigator, it's something we pray to hear. We want to hear. We're going, please let me hear something. Let me see something. So for one of my first big experiences on a team, for me, I couldn't have asked for a better experience. And it's one that will always stay in my mind as one of my first. The sound of it, the man being really jokey with me and jovial and having a laugh going, haha, I'm scaring the living, it's great. So I have really fond memories, and when I close my eyes I can remember the temperature of the room and how it felt and everything. So that is one of my best memories. I have a lot of memories, but that was one of my best memories to date that I can recall without scaring everybody. And hopefully Loftus will open up again and we get to relive what the Great Hall has to say and tell us over her experiences while she's been closed to the public at the moment. So yeah, good old Loftus Hall. She kept us all going back for more and more.
Gwen Johnson, widow of British medium and TV personality Derek Acorah. Here, Gwen relates seeing a possible apparition of Derek leaving their house despite the fact that at the time he was in hospital on the verge of passing away.
Yes, it was the Thursday morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd just come home from the hospital and I came into the kitchen where a light was on. And I looked through to the conservatory, which is attached to the kitchen, and I saw Derek walking away. He wasn't wearing the clothes that he'd gone into hospital with. He was wearing something totally different, actually. He was wearing a pair of jeans and a sheepskin-lined jacket type thing. Yeah, and he walked away. And he didn't look over his shoulder. He didn't turn around. It was just him walking away. And I knew then that he'd gone. I went back to the hospital. It was an hour or two later. They told me that there was no hope and they were turning all the life support stuff off. And he managed to maintain, or his body managed to maintain life for 20 minutes before his heart stopped. at 5 minutes past 12 on Saturday morning.
Sarah Campbell.
Tanya Rogers of Cork Supernatural Society.
I've had my experiences I can't explain. They've followed me since I was a child and, well, they shaped who I am. It began in Mayfield when I was about 3. One night my mother walked into my room and asked, "Who are you talking to?" I pointed behind her, looking behind her. "Who went behind you, Mummy?" I remember her screaming and running out to my father. Mind you, she left me there. Years later, looking through family photos, I saw her again. That same woman, holding me as a newborn. My mother told me, she died 3 days after I was born. That was my great-grandmother. The woman I saw that night wasn't in my imagination. She was real. In that same house, I had a habit of climbing onto the bedroom windowsill, my parents' bedroom windowsill, 2 stories up. I remember I was sitting there, and my nan waving down. She was like a second mother to me. Because any chance I could, I'd always go to my nanny's house. I used to love it. I remember my nan smiling back, trying to keep me calm. But I know now she wasn't trying to just, be nice. She was trying to alert my mother, but keep me steady. Because I'm a fidgety adult, but I was a very, very fidgety child. And then I remember this always in my mind, because I'd feel my mother's hand grabbing the back of my head and dragging me inside. I was only 3 or 4 then, I say. Too young to understand fear, but my mother's fear. When we moved into the flat then after that, my father used to drill all the windows shut. Apparently this was a very common thing I used to do, was always make my way to the window. He was afraid in case I climbed out again. Not long after I made my communion, I was 8. My best friend was Michelle. We used to laugh, play hide and seek, even wore matching crop tops in the summer. We thought we were unreal. 3 days after our communion, I remember my mother brought me to Michelle's house for the first time. Now, I've been to Michelle's house, but this is the first time my mother has ever been to Michelle's house. And I remember thinking, Michelle, we're best friends. I know our mums are best friends. God, I was so excited. I remember that day I burst in the door calling for her. We played hide and seek like always, crammed under the stairs, giggling. It was the best hideout. From there, I remember just sitting there. I could see into the kitchen where my mum sat with Michelle's mum. And then I remember Michelle's mother was crying. I remember her head in her hands, just like uncontrollably crying. I remember going, "Michelle, your mum is very sad." And Michelle saying to me, "It's okay, come on, let's play. My mummy will be okay." I never thought much of it until 8 years later. At 16, I was told the truth. You see, Michelle had died on our communion day, and that visit wasn't a play date. My mother was paying her respects, but to me, I was playing hide and seek with my best friend. At 16, I also had my first real, independence. I got the house key, because I had half days on a certain day during the week from school. One afternoon I came home early and I remember seeing a young girl in a dress move slowly from the stairs into the spare room. I remember I just froze. This girl was inside the house. I'm home alone. When the fear finally hit me, I bolted out the back door and I didn't tell anyone for years. Later I found out my father had seen the same girl too, during one of his episodes of sleep paralysis. She screamed in his face while a tall shadow man loomed behind him. This dark shadow figure loomed behind her with a cowboy hat. Well, I call it a cowboy hat. That's how he described it anyway. The thing is, my sister saw her too as well when she was young. She was hanging in her bedroom in her communion dress in the corner of our bedroom. At 19, when I moved into our house share, myself and 2 guys, that's when it escalated. One day my radio started hissing with static. There's no batteries, nothing plugged in. I checked. And then when I looked up at the doorway, I saw him. That shadow man. Solid, tall, wearing a hat. He walked straight into my housemate's locked bedroom because he was at work. At first I doubted myself. I kept moving things around like nothing happened, trying to figure out what the hell did I just see. But then that's when the fear hit me like a freight train. I flew down the stairs with my sister and a friend were visiting. I made up an excuse, asked them to go fetch a bottle of Coke from my room just to see if they'd see it too. They didn't. When I admitted I thought I saw a ghost, my sister screamed. That memory, the static, the shadow, the fear, especially my sister's face, I'll never forget it. Over the years I've seen full apparitions, felt physical touches, heard voices. My mother never wanted to talk about it, but before she passed in 2020, she left me a letter. She's on palliative care, you see. And that was for the first time she acknowledged my experiences. She promised that one day when I was ready, she would send me a sign. But any time I felt that she was near me, I'll tell her I wasn't ready. But the moment I'm most grateful for her was in 2017. I'd been in pain for months, from October to February. February, I finally went to the doctor and he said, sciatica. He gave me painkillers and sent me on my way. But one night I dreamt of my grandmother. You know, the one who helped raise me, who had died when I was 15. Oh, she was angry. She told me to go to hospital. Told me if I didn't, she'd haunt me. And she promised and swore down she would haunt me every time until I did. I couldn't escape that dream. A few days later, I went to A&E. They found stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. 26 cancerous tumours, I was told. And if I hadn't gone when I did, well, to be honest, they said they couldn't see me surviving any longer than 6 weeks. My grandma's warning, I believe, saved my life. So yes, I believe I lived it. These experiences are part of me. Whether you believe or not, it doesn't matter, because this is my life, my truth, and I'll never stop searching for answers for me and for you. Thank you.
Annette Rose, retired, formerly of Birmingham, England, now resident on the west coast of Ireland for many years.
What do I believe? And have I seen supernatural things? It's like this. I believe that the old folklore and all the old wives' tales are linked. But basically the old beliefs are the same as what people call the supernatural. There are reasons for everything, and the more you look into them, you will find that a lot of things are linked or originate from the same. Where we live, people always told us that the place is haunted. But it's more than that. It's as if the place has some kind of energy. For instance, take the old Irish folklore, a warning, I suppose you call it, about touching a fairy tree. Bad luck will befall you if you do. Where we live, there are some individual whitethorn trees, or hawthorn trees as are sometimes called, standing on their own in the middle of a field. A tree like this is supposed to have some kind of special power or some kind of special energy related to it. And the old Irish tradition is that you never ever touch a fairy tree unless you have asked and been given its permission. How an individual tree managed to survive in the middle of the field is a miracle in itself, because that field will be grazed by animals, and usually they eat the young trees as they are growing as well. I suppose that this is why they say that a lone whitethorn tree in the middle of the field is that very special tree. But anyway, this particular tree I refer to was cut down one year by a man who was preparing the soil for planting in a nearby field. The tree cut down, leaving a sizable stump behind. He then used the tree to scuffle the soil as he dragged it behind his tractor. I watched this, and it actually did a very good job. But the old saying about never touching a fairy tree is that if you harm a fairy tree, then bad things will happen to the person who did this. I can tell you that man was seriously ill afterwards with the big C. The tree stumps survived, grew again, and so did he. The tree is still there and so is he. We always think it's a good thing he never killed the tree when he chopped it down. Other supernatural events around our house are that the dog's toys and balls kept disappearing from outside the house. We would find them way off in a field hundreds of metres away, where the dogs had no access. Now some of you will say, well, those toys and balls were probably carried off by wild animals. OK, but how do you explain finding a crab apple in the same field, I think it was in March, and the nearest crab apple tree is almost 7 miles away? And this field is completely off the road, where no people have access to it. And also remembering, you do not get a crab apple in springtime, they arrive in the autumn. Then there are the noises that we hear. We can be sitting in the house and you can hear a bang like a gunshot just outside the front door. We can hear vehicles pulling up just outside of our house as well, which is 100 yards from the road and protected by a closed gate. But when you go outside, there is nothing. It is silent with just the birds singing, and there is no traffic on the roads at all. This just doesn't happen once. It has happened many times, together with music, when there is no music being played in the house or from neighbours, which are at least 400 metres away. Cigarette smoke is quite common, which we smell often some nights and some days. But then there is nobody to be seen. And like we said, the road is 100 metres away from the house, with nobody around. If you go walking in the fields at night, there is always that feeling that makes the hairs on your neck stand up, as if you are not alone, and you are being watched. It is a creepy feeling in one respect, added to sometimes there are strange noises in the darkness, which could be an animal, except there aren't animal noises, well, at least any animals that we know. It is a very remote area in one respect, and as humans are encroaching on the area, these eerie occurrences appear to get less and less. Are any of these caused by a ghost, or what we say are ghosts? The undead? I don't know. There are probably just as many things I can't remember as what I have listed here, but a fact is, energy never goes away. When somebody or something dies, the energy from their body is absorbed into the ground if they are buried. The body is then consumed by insects and plants such as trees. In the old days, the month of May was always known as the rebirth. This is when plants and seeds from previous year came back into life. So the energy from the dead body buried in the ground was born again. Maybe if the energy from a dead body hasn't been consumed by nature, it is then lost and is forever wandering the earth. Who knows? But I do know where we live. As I have said already, we always get the feeling or we notice something where we are not alone and there is somebody or something present and even watching us. Maybe one day we will find the reasons for this, but if you go back to ancient beliefs and folklore, they used to plant trees by houses and graveyards to keep evil away. A rowan tree, sometimes known as a mountain ash, was planted by a house or graveyard to ward off evil. You have to ask, why did they do this and why did they believe such a thing? It wasn't just a few superstitious people after a good night's drinking who came up with this. It is a widespread belief, which has been practiced for thousands of years. and in different countries. What are those people warding off by planting trees? So, like I said earlier, I believe that the supernatural and folklore, or even superstitions, are all linked.
Jenny Sullivan, Emerald Isle Paranormal.
When I was younger, I knew I was different. I come from a family of 11. I knew things I could not have known at that age. Seen and heard things that I could never have explained, but never really said it to anyone because they would not believe me or understand. Here are two of my experiences. I was walking home from my friend's house. One night, when walking up my front garden, I met my brother's friend. The sky was a beautiful, clear November night, just stars, but something made me point into the sky and say, "What's that?" My brother's friend started singing and dancing, saying it was the banshees, and I asked him to stop. I told my sister, and she closed the curtains, rang a few people to come up to the house to see what was going on. When we went outside to look, there was 3 long, comet-like shaped figures in the sky above an unused factory across from my home, floating left to right. If on the ground, I would guess about 50 to 60 foot, long, smoky grey in colour. My mum was picked up from work. We had friends there that had just lost family members that night and previous week. My younger siblings were watching TV. They had no interest in it. I, of course, did. I was outside watching these 3 grey figures floating left to right, 2 on one side and 1 on the other side. When they floated up into the sky, they'd disappear. But there was no clouds in the sky for them to disappear into. They just did. And then they would come back down on opposite sides, 2 on one side and 1 on the other side. Then with a blink of an eye, one shot right down in between the hedges, flew through the hedges and shot right back up. If you blinked, you would have missed it. We all stood there and we screamed. We screamed. Adults were pulling me behind them so they could get into the house first. There was a lot of commotion on. We were trying to figure out what they were. Some were saying spotlights from Dublin, but we're too far away from Dublin and they were too low in the sky for them to be spotlights. They were huge, smoky grey, comet-like. As I say this, the picture is in my head right now. We never knew what they were. To this day, we still don't know what they were or what they are. But it's something that has never, ever, ever left me. My second experience would be in Shane's Castle up in County Antrim. Many years ago, an investigation in Shane's Castle. The castle is a ruin, so all of our investigations were conducted in the tunnels. It was an amazing investigation. We had done a reenactment earlier on in the night, which was extremely active, aggressive, if I could say. At the end of the night, I led a team back down to the tunnels where we had done the reenactment earlier on in the night. As soon as we walked in, the smell of sulphur hit me. It burnt my throat, my nostrils, it irritated the back of my throat. But as we continued in, against advice not to, saying, "They know we are here." So I said, so then we continue. If they know we're here and we know they are here, let's continue. This is what we do. But because we had public with us, I decided to retreat, saying I don't know why we're leaving when they know we are here. Vice versa. Within approximately 15 seconds later, it was as if something came right up to me, rushed through me, or stood right in front of me. My eyes closed, my head went back. Something that you would see in the Matrix movie. My hearing went. It was as if something was pushing me or going through me as a warning to say, do not mess with us. And I know these tunnels for many years. We left because we had public with us, and I never ever wanted to smell that sulphur smell again, ever. But 10 or more years later, it happened again in the bloody chapel of Lep Castle. I had a guest with me and I asked him, "What do you think of Lep Castle so far?" And the person said, "It's nice, it's okay, it's good." And I said, yes, the chapel can be a little quiet sometimes. With me saying that, as anyone who knows the bloody chapel knows, there are no windows. Within seconds later, the smell of sulphur came again, that only I could smell it. I thought my jacket was on fire. And I knew immediately I could taste it, I could smell it. And immediately I thought to myself, oh my God, it's happening again. It frightened me. I will not lie, it frightened me so much to know that I never wanted to smell it again, but yet I did. I had asked everybody, could you smell sulphur? No one could smell it but me. And then they began to smell it, and we left the bloody chapel. I sat downstairs, and the rest of the group went back upstairs. I had asked them to see if I had permission to go back up again, and the answer was no. So I did not go back upstairs again. I have been since, but I think that was a warning to me when I said it can be a little quiet up in the bloody chapel. It was a warning to say, nope, we are here. And they are just two of my experiences within many years of my paranormal experiences.
We hope you enjoyed the Scary EIRE Female Special. Many thanks to Anthony of Ghost EIRE, whose assistance in this project was invaluable. You can get in touch by mailing paranormalireland@protonmail.com. I'm Sarah Campbell. Scary EIRE is a markmanningmedia.com production. Thank you for listening.